Hare Krishna, good morning. My request everybody to please, go on mute and also put your camera off so that while we are recording, there is no disturbance. But when we come to the question session, if you wish to ask a question, then, you can unmute yourself or, raise your hand and I would welcome you one by one. I'm just waiting for a minute before we get started for others also to join. Okay, so we'll get started with today's session. So friends, as I had mentioned in the WhatsApp group, today I wanted to share a few thoughts of mine about understanding something very, very basic before we get into detailed understanding of scriptures like Srimad Bhagavad Gita. The topic of today's discussion I would like to keep is to understand, first of all, what do we mean by spirituality or being spiritual? So we must have heard philosophical many things, explanations, but today I wanted to make the explanation as simple as possible for everybody to grasp so that anything one does going forward after this understanding is going to be in the right direction. So very simply put, if you look at the word spiritual in English and try to dissect it, it basically means what is natural to the spirit soul. That is called spiritual. Right? So let me repeat this. What is natural to the spirit soul is spiritual. As simple as that. But the question, when you understand this simple definition, then one automatically comes to the point of asking, what is natural to the spirit soul? And more importantly, what is the spirit soul? Spirit soul is actually the Atma, the Jivatma, which is the real self within each one of us. I have a body, you have a body. It's like a clothing our Atma has worn. But nothing more, nothing less. Our body does not define the real us. The real us is the Atman within us. And that Atman is being referred to as the spirit soul. So the next question is, what is natural to the spirit soul? Very simple, anything that is created in this world is created for a purpose, to fulfill a purpose of the creator. So if you have invented a mobile phone, the intent of creating the mobile phone, the purpose of creating the mobile phone is to help people communicate when they are physically distant using sound waves, etc. So the purpose, the intent of creating the mobile phone is to help people communicate from a distance, right? So the mobile phone natural characteristic is to help in the process of communication according to the way it has been created by the creator and programmed with all the chips and everything that's inside of it. Simple to understand, isn't it? Another example would be, take a washing machine that has been created by somebody. A washing machine has been created to wash clothes. According to that, it has been programmed and created. The external structure of it, the internal chips and programming of it, everything is meant to help that equipment perform the duty for which it has been created by the creator. Similarly, you can keep thinking of anything that has been created, from a table, a chair, to a computer, to a dishwasher, to a vacuum cleaner, right? Now, in case a washing machine tries to work like a vacuum cleaner, the equipment itself gets into a problem, and the user who is trying to use and the place where it exists, it's going to cause disturbance for everybody, isn't it? So a washing machine can perform its own duty to its best, but maybe quite useless or creating a lot of nuisance if it tries to perform like somebody else. And a washing machine cannot decide on its own whether it wants to be a washing machine, or it wants to be a dishwasher, or it wants to be a vacuum cleaner, or it wants to be a telephone. It cannot decide that. It's already been created for a purpose by the creator, and the only thing it can do is to perfectly function the way it is meant to function, utilizing all the programs and the chips that have been put within that to help it perform. Now, if this makes sense, you know where I'm coming to. We as human beings have been created by the creator for a purpose in a particular way. We need to understand that and live according to that to the best possible perfection the creator has created it for. I have no business to try to be like you, or vice versa. I am I, you are you, and we are the best version of who we can be on our own. And since our creator is perfect, whatever he has created in each one of us is perfect in the way it is meant to be. Now, the different species of living beings, if you see around us, there could be a bird, there could be a fish. Each one has been created to live in a particular way, performing its own duty in the entire ecosystem. As long as we all live according to that, there is semblance of order. There is harmony in existence. The moment, we people who are the controlled, let's be clear about that. We are the controlled. We are the, ones who have been created by the enjoyer to be enjoyed. That's a fact of life, whether you like it or not. A washing machine does not exist for its own enjoyment. Its enjoyment is in being used by the user in the best possible way. And when the user is happy with its use and the way it performs, that is the perfection of a washing machine. Now look at the trees. What is their perfection? To grow as they're meant to grow, to provide shade, to provide the fruits, to provide whatever they are meant to provide, the flowers, in the best possible manner, making use of everything else that has been provided in the ecosystem for it to grow and be at its best. But the way we can interfere in the growth and performance of another being around us, our growth can also be interfered by others around us. And therefore, while the first thing for all of us to do is to use all our faculties, including our intelligence, to understand ourselves, who we are meant to be, and become that in its fullest potential, The next best thing we can do is to help everybody else around us to do the same. That way, it helps them and it helps us and it helps the entire cosmos of creation. But today, even though we want to claim that we are the most intelligent species that exists, are we behaving intelligently? That is a question we have to ask. Intelligence does not mean, how well I can do rote learning, how much score I can have in the so-called academics, the way I'm being judged by whoever is judging. That is not the real intelligence. Today, even in the world outside, even in the corporate world or in the academic world, it is recognized that intelligence itself is of many different kinds that we all possess to one degree or the other. What are these kind of intelligences? Each aspect of the being has a particular kind of intelligence that has been gifted to manage that aspect of us as a being. Example, what we refer to as usually in the common language as intelligence or IQ is what measures at best, according to what we know, our mental capacity or the mental intelligence. Similarly, there is emotional intelligence, the feeling bit. They both are not just disconnected. Sometimes it may behave inversely proportionately. The more one has a IQ, the less they seem to have EQ. But best is to have a very balanced equilibrium between IQ and EQ. Now look at the third aspect, the most, I would say superficial or the most important one with which we recognize ourselves, the body, the physical aspect. There are a lot of things that are happening within our body and outside of our body that are not being managed by the IQ part of it or the EQ part of it. For example, I feel hungry. That's not just mind. That's not just a feeling. That's happening within the system to manage the system physically. And then I partake some food and there's a process going on digesting the food, filtering the food, removing the waste, absorbing, what has to be absorbed, converting it into the kind of energies that it needs to be converted into, and supplying it to the different parts of the body. This intelligence that is managing this aspect of it is not something that is controlled by our mind. I'm not thinking at this point and giving instructions to my stomach or intestine what it should do once the food comes in. How much bile juice has to be released into the stomach according to the kind of food I have taken, how much time it needs to do the process. Everything is being decided independently in the body. And that intelligence is referred to as PQ, physical quotient. IQ is intelligence quotient, which is the mental quotient. EQ is the emotional quotient. Similarly, PQ is the physical quotient. And the fourth one, which is again being recognized world over in the academic spheres, in the scientific spheres, is what is being referred to as the spiritual quotient, SQ. How well you are aware of yourself, how well you are managing yourself using that intelligence that has been provided for that purpose is what defines your SQ. And the one who really experiences happiness, what each one of us is looking for, can achieve that only when there is an absolute balance between all the four. Any one missing will not allow you to be happy. What do I mean by that? Suppose I have, a great understanding about myself. I'm a very aware person. I'm a very conscious person. I have managed myself well. I am living according to my purpose. I am living according to my dharma or the prescribed duty, all that I'm doing, but I do not have good health. You all know what happens. There is suffering. Similarly, if I have good health, good spiritual health, but if I don't have the proper mental health or the emotional health, that's not going to work. So we need to take care. When you say take care of yourself, take care of your health, we need to take care of all these four aspects of ourselves by becoming aware, by learning how to manage these four aspects within us, using the individual intelligence that has been provided to us for the purpose, and then living a life of our potential. So, friends, spirituality is not just about being God conscious. Spirituality is about living according to your spirit soul. And yes, the spirit soul is meant, as I said, for a purpose. It has been created for a purpose. And again, to simplify it, which is the truth, is simply the Creator has created us to serve Him and to seek enjoyment from us. Simple. Therefore, sometimes even if I'm a thief, a burglar, a murderer, sometimes when I get into that zone of just singing a bhajan or getting into a meditative mood, when I'm connected to a different plane, even I feel the bliss. Irrespective of who I am, what characteristics I display, what behavior I have, how I live. Because that is our natural state of being. That moment one is being spiritual. Now, by doing different practices, by reading scriptures like Bhagavad Gita, we learn while we are in the midst of so many things that distract us, confuse us. How do we remain blissful in that spiritual state while we are busy in a crowd, in a crowded, ecosystem, doing whatever we are meant to do? How are we supposed to, with that awareness, make the right choices, create the right priorities for ourselves in life? That is what spirituality helps. Spirituality is not about, just becoming religious, following different rituals, saying certain slokas, or, going and sitting in the Himalayas and meditating for hours, or just being peaceful and I have controlled my anger and stuff like that. Those are very, very external aspects of being spiritual. Spiritual is a very holistic aspect. So I have tried to make the whole thing very simple for all of us to understand. I hope it made sense. And at this point, I would like to open the session up for any questions that you may have about either just spirituality. Have you got it? Is that clear for you? Is there any questions you have to understand it better? Because once we have this clear, it helps you in having at least an understanding of the different aspects of yourself, and know that when we talk about even becoming self-aware, how many different things, how many different aspects are there within ourselves for us to become aware of, and then learn how to manage ourselves in all these aspects. And then I would say how to become conscious leaders, masters of ourselves, when we do not allow our physical, mental, emotional, or even spiritual for that matter, aspect of us to control us. We take charge. And obviously, the spiritual one takes charge because that is who, at the core of it, we are. I am the spirit soul, which is within this body, which the world identifies as Archana. And you are similarly who is residing within your body with the name of Manjushri or Ramanjaneyulu. That is who you are. Can we get in touch with that us? And then can we allow that real us to blossom within us and outside of us is the only job we have. Interesting, isn't it? And we hardly spend even 1% of our time in focusing about this very important aspect. We are so busy being busy, as they say. Yes, Manjushri, please unmute yourself and you can speak. Hare Krishna.
Hello?
Yes,
Can you hear me, ma'am?
yes, I can hear you.
Oh, ma'am, today's topic is very much interesting, and ma'am, I want to listen more about the spirituality. Actually, ma'am, I am hungry for this session. When I see this session, this topic, ma'am, I want to listen more. Can you describe more about the spirituality? Elaborate more. I will
Sure.
thank you to you.
Sure.
Okay, so,
I will.
yes, okay, ma'am.
So,
And once more, ma'am, I
yes,
want to tell you
yes.
that it works, ma'am. You told me in the morning you pray for Maha Mantra 4 times. So I started, and ma'am, last 1 week it works, ma'am. It works. It
Lovely.
worked
I'm
for me.
so happy for you. I'm so happy to hear this. Wonderful.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah. So actually, Manjushri, what you mentioned, it's all about us, first of all, being clear about what we want to do. And then according to that, we create the right, priorities for ourselves. And according to the priority, manage the time that we have. None of us have a choice to expand the time or the space that we have, but we all have a choice to utilize that space and time that we have effectively in the way we want to. The issue is, do we have clarity on what we want to do? That is the whole idea, right? So, going forward, Manjushri, since you're asking a little bit more about spirituality, what I would like to actually explain to everybody is, for anyone to grow from anywhere to anywhere in any aspect, you will all agree with me, the first thing we need to do is to have an overall understanding about it as to what are we even attempting to do. So there should be awareness about that. Once we become aware of the prospect, then we gauge ourselves where we are at this point in time. So we have to become self-aware. And then in that entire, scale, we need to actually put ourselves, ideally, we should be somewhere here at the moment. Where are we? And then based on where we are, we actually create a journey forward for ourselves from where we are to where we want to be. So what I spoke this morning, for example, if you look at that example, becoming aware of our physical dimension, becoming aware of our emotional dimension, yeah, becoming aware of our the mental dimension, emotional dimension, the spiritual dimension. In all these 4 dimensions, what I call as the 4D of self, we have to become, first of all, aware about these 4 aspects. So when I say physical, look at all of us, no? We all identify ourselves with the body that we have. But if I ask you, like, how much are we aware of other than the name we have, or, we have been told this is the sex we belong to or whatever. What is the awareness we have about our body also? Do we understand why our body behaves the way it behaves? Do we know, when I eat something, what works for me and what does not work for me? Have I got awareness about, how do I keep the energy, energy in the body fit? How do I keep the body fit by itself? What are the different aspects? How it interacts with what I do with it? How much sleep? How much of, my jogging, walking, eating is affecting it? So all those things and more, if you sit down one day and just think, today let me think about my physical dimension and become aware of the physical dimension and how much am I aware of and what all more I need to become aware of. And see, where you stand as on today. And then see where you need to improve. And to do that, what are you going to do? So similarly, look at your mental, dimension, look at your emotional dimension. Do you feel your feelings go all over? Is it under your control? What are the triggers for you to feel the way you feel? Your mind, is mind in your control, or is the mind controlling you and making you do different things according to its own whims and fancies? What is it doing? What does it do? All these things, if you can look at all the four dimensions and sit one day at a time and spend the whole time as much as you need to do, and keep a paper and a pen is what I would suggest. Start jotting down whatever awareness you get. And also mark for yourself, there is no better judge than you about yourself. Where do you stand? Which are the aspects where you think you need to work upon? Whether to become more aware, or whether to become, manage that area, or to become a leader or a master in that area. And then you will have your path forward. So I also see Vedavati auntie, Namaste, Hare Krishna, you have joined. I'm very happy to see you. So any questions? We have like 10 more minutes to go in this session. I just spoke in the first half about spirituality itself, like what does spirituality mean? And a very simple definition I gave, that what is natural to the spirit soul is spiritual. That's it. So the issue is then to understand what is that spirit soul, what is natural to it, and then live the life as we are meant to live. And what does that mean? What I explained in brief is, a creator, when he creates something, has a purpose in mind, and according to that, anything is created. Similarly, we have been created with a purpose by our creator in the way we are created. Our only job is to live according to that, to as much perfection as possible. We have no business to think what else we want to do. That is not in our area of involvement. So I tried to make it overly simplified maybe, but that has helped me. So I'm just sharing that. So that is itself, and I'm talking about the four dimensions and four kinds of intelligence we have been provided with, to become aware of, to manage ourselves, and to become masters of ourselves. And that is the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual dimension, and the four kinds of intelligence that has been provided to manage these aspects and to master these aspects. And that is when we can reach our own perfection. And once we reach our own perfection, it is important that we help others around us in the ecosystem to also reach that perfection. And we don't have to wait to become perfect to help others. With whatever little realizations we have in our life, with our own journey of life, we can start sharing that and help others to also benefit from that. So that is what I kind of covered this morning. If anybody wants to ask anything, please feel free to do that. Everybody has been put on mute. So if anybody wants to speak, either you can raise your hand and I can call on you, or you can unmute yourself and speak, because we are not so many of us. So that's simple. So I'll wait to see any hand up for a question. In the meantime, I will continue with what more I can share, making use of the time, because what I do is I am recording this session and post the live session. The recording is posted online so that anybody who wants to listen to it at a later time can still listen to it and still interact with me over WhatsApp or Facebook on whatever is discussed. So, Manjushri, you have any specific questions about spirituality? That is an aspect that you want to understand more than I can elaborate on that particular aspect.
Hello, ma'am. Can I speak?
Yes, please.
Hello.
Yes, Manjushri.
Actually, ma'am, I asked, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Actually, ma'am, I asked about the IQ. You told the IQ and EQ varies inversely sometimes. So,
Yes.
ma'am, in these portions, ma'am, I cannot get, because if IQ and EQ are varies inversely, then how everything will go properly. But this portion, ma'am, I can't understand. So, can
Okay.
you
Okay.
elaborate these portions?
Okay. Thank you so
Okay, ma'am.
much. I'll try to elaborate what I mean. Now, you
Okay,
see,
ma'am.
there are many people who are very mentally intellectual. So they can gather a lot of knowledge, they can disseminate that knowledge, they can utilize that knowledge that they have using the mental power, the mental intelligence that they have. But when it comes to, for example, dealing with people, they are terrible at it. Terrible. I mean, you can think of some doctors, some corporate leaders. And one such example I can take is a favorite of mine in the corporate world who has created Apple computers. Yeah. He is a perfect example. IQ extremely high, extremely high, amazing, creative guy, intelligent guy. He did what he did. We all know. I don't have to explain. But he was terrible at dealing with people, dealing with emotions, dealing with his own family, his wife, his daughter, his employees, his colleagues. He was terrible at it. Steve Jobs, I'm talking about, right? He was terrible. If you read his story, you will know what I mean. And similarly, if you watch very closely in your life, sometimes, even within ourselves, when we get highly intellectual, there is a kind of, even intellectual pride that we get into. And then that spoils a lot of things for us on the emotional front. We get, what we do is distance ourselves. We have no empathy, we have no sympathy. We have problem in relating to people who are not just like us in their intelligence. When I say intelligence, mental intelligence, so all these things, when you observe, there is a tendency for people who are high in IQ to be bad with their EQ unless they become aware of the importance of it, the existence of it, and work on it. So today's time in corporate leadership, actually we do a lot of programs to support CEOs, directors, managers. They may be good, they may be experts in their field, but they're terrible at managing people. So we help them. Sometimes people talk about living a balanced life. They have a great professional life, they're getting promotions, they're getting recognition, they're great. But within the family, they have no clue what's going on. They spoil their family life. But if the family life gets disturbed, there is no way you can continue your journey upwards, even in your career, or there is no meaning to it, I would say. Right? So this is where I was trying to say that many times you can observe that the IQ and EQ can be inversely proportional, but I don't mean it as a rule of the thumb, but that is norm. So be careful when you think you have a high IQ, check on your EQ. I do that as well. So that's what I would like to say. So with this, I think I would like to conclude the session. If there is anything else, yeah, thank you, Manjushri. I'm glad you got it. So we would connect up next week, same time. And thank you all for joining in the live session. And I would like to see all of you as regular as possible in these weekly sessions. And any suggestion you have on a topic that we could take up, please do WhatsApp me, and we will work on that subject, and we'll do the next session on that subject. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, ma'am. Stay. Hare Krishna. Stay safe, ma'am.
Hare Krishna.
Take care.
Take care. Bye bye.
Take care, ma'am. Bye bye.